Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint and Fabrication. Well, we're back on the 65 Malibu SS today, and we got some work to do on a window channel. So this car was a couple of hundred miles away when we got it. So I went out with my buddy. We went to get the car, made the deal, and then I was to drive it home. And I got on the freeway, and the first thing I noticed was whistling coming out of the windows. And I'm rolling them up and down, trying to get it to quiet down, and checked it out, and the window channel is just gone. I mean, this is probably the original window channel from '65, so it's, 57 years old, and it's in there, but the part that seals around the glass is completely gone. I mean, there's not even a shred of it left, so there's just basically a little U in there, and the window's just rattling around in there, not sealed. So that's our job for today. We don't. Last thing we want, we had brand new air conditioning, brand new stereo, everything done, and then drive around with whistling windows. That's no fun. So we're going to change that out today. So we got to get the door panel off and dig into this thing and get this channel changed on both doors. Okay, the first thing we need to do obviously is get the door handles off. Now you don't want to take the door pull off until you get the handles off, because that kind of helps hold the door panel up against the sheet metal and gives you a little bit more room to get your tool in there. So these are super cheap. You can get them at Harbor Freight just about anywhere. I've got a drawer full of clip pullers and all kinds of stuff. So this was my dad's, and it's worn in, and I've got it bent into such a way that it doesn't dig into the panel. Now, sometimes door handles and door pulls are put on without the little escutcheon washer. And then what happens is when you put the tool in, you can actually dig into the vinyl on your door panel and put a hole in it. So you want to be very careful if you don't have those in there. Normally the tool will slide between that little escutcheon and just kind of push the clip out just like that. So the thing is, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, that little C-clip that's on there, people put it in backwards. So imagine you have to take this off, okay? Somebody down the road has to take this off. So if you put the clip in this way, right, that means it has to push out that way. Well, now you have to try to get your tool in behind the handle and get it in there, instead of on this side where you have plenty of room, okay? So be a friend to yourself or the next guy that has to work on this thing. Make sure you think about it before you put the C-clip back on. And always put it back on as soon as you get it off, so you don't lose it. If they get weak, you can get these at any auto parts store to make sure that handle stays on there really nice. So, but always consider which direction to put the C-clip back on. Now on this handle, it's on this side. Now, normally you don't want that, because now I have to take the door pull off to get to it, right? Instead of working it this way, but I still got it off because I've done this, forever. But you just always want to think about, how am I going to get that door handle off next time, and make sure you face the clip in a direction that's going to be helpful to you, the next time you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this door pull off. We'll get the door panel off, and we're going to take a look inside here and figure out how to get this old channel out and get the new one in. Okay, just real quick to get the door panel off. Now there's clips and pins in here that are friction fit into the sheet metal pockets. There's a little plastic piece in there, and these door panels, like a lot of them, are just basically cardboard. So if you just stick your fingers in here and start prying, the clip is actually missing right here. I pulled the screws off on the bottom, so now we just have a clip right here. And if you just pull on it, chances are you're going to just tear that metal clip out of the cardboard, or break the cardboard, or it's something else that you're going to have to fix later. So I've got a drawer full of tools, like I mentioned earlier. This plier right here comes in handy for certain ones where you just squeeze it and it just opens up and kind of just pries it open. There's nice paint right here, so it could scratch the paint. I've got other tools that'll slide in, plastic, and this one here is kind of my favorite for getting these off. It's kind of a weird shape. I forget where I got these. I think I put them on my Christmas list. It was on Amazon or something. But what you can do is you can use a plastic tool to protect, and you kind of find the clip right like that, and sometimes you can just use a plastic one and just pry it right out, just like that, see? And so now we've actually pried it away instead of pulling on the cardboard. This one comes in super handy because you can come in like this, and then you're over here, you can see what's going on, and you can pry away like that so you don't scratch the paint at all. But you just want to be aware that, you know, getting these clips off, you don't want to screw anything up and ruin them. Now, there's a clip missing on here, but I've got a coffee can full of stuff, so I'll make sure it gets replaced. But you can tell these things are just cardboard. It's just super thin, hard cardboard. So we're going to set this aside. I'll replace that clip later. We got to get the paper off. That's another thing. Take it off carefully because that is a moisture barrier to keep the rainwater when you're washing the car from getting to the back of your door panel, because it's just cardboard. It'll start buckling and getting all messed up. So let me get this off here, and we're going to get inside this door and see how we can get that channel out of there. Okay, they had a lot of duct tape covering the holes. I'm not quite sure what they were doing with that, but the vapor barrier covered the whole thing. So, and your vapor barrier, it's a little pro tip, it should come down and then it should tuck into this groove right here. There's a groove across the bottom right here, and what happens is if any moisture happens to hit that, you want it to run down and then end up back inside the door. Don't just let it dangle right here. And if you use plastic, newer cars have plastic ones, you always want to make sure that's pushed down so that the moisture will actually turn and run down. I live in a dry climate, so it's not that big of a deal, but when you wash the car and everything else, water's going to get in there, you want to make sure it runs down and not inside your car. Okay, to start off, there's a small Phillips screwdriver right up in here. There's a little molded piece that the glass comes up to, almost like a stop. So you kind of have to feel your Phillips screwdriver in there until you find it, and then just back it out. Now sometimes the fabric of the channel kind of goes around the screw and makes it hard to find, so you kind of have to dig around in there. This one was fairly easy. It's all dried up and there's a lot of the material missing here. So we're just going to take that out. Hopefully the screw comes out. Nope. All right, well, we'll get the screw out once we get the channel out. So now that can pull away. Now, I don't know who put this in. Generally, they just pop in, but sometimes people will put a couple of dabs of weather strip adhesive on there to get them to stay in nice and tight. So I don't know if this one's going to come out easy or hard, but I'm going to start pulling on it and see if we can pull it away. There we go. So there's like a little hook on here that hooks into the little channel right here on the stainless part, around the stainless piece. So we can pull that away, and then we're going to have to try to pry this out. There we go. Hopefully that screw doesn't shoot across the room. There we go, and there's the screw. So the plan here is to try to just pull this channel straight up out of there, and I think I may adjust the window back out of the way a little bit so I have a little bit of wiggle room, because I think I can slide it back down inside there. But let me get this out, and then we're going to compare it in length to the new one, and then we're going to make sure this one wasn't too short, and then what we'll do is probably cut the new one to length if it doesn't match, and then just try to fish it right back down inside here. Okay, so I've got the old one out, and here's the new one, here's the old one. So if I hold this up here, we can see that's the old one right there. So the new one's considerably longer, so we're going to have to cut it to length. I just want to confirm to make sure that the old one did not fall short inside the channel, so the glass is covered all the way. And frankly, I should have checked before I pulled it out. But you do need to inspect all your new parts to make sure they match the old one. You know, where the screw hole is, the shape here, because you know, a lot of these parts come from overseas, or whoever's making the repops, they're just busting them out, and maybe their molds aren't exactly right, or they're not using the same materials. And in this case, they did not use the same materials. So this piece right here on the factory one is like a hard plastic, and that's the very top part. It's molded into this. The new one, that's just like rubber, you know, so it's not the same. Now, it'll still work, but it's not the same. So it's something you need to be aware of. And the new one obviously seems to be a lot fatter. And that's probably just from shrinkage. but this one is considerably wider at the back than the old one. So it may be a little tough putting it in there. The window may be a little tight to roll up and down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as the mechanism works well, because you want those windows in there nice and snug so they don't rattle, leak, and whistle, right? So let me get this measured out, and then we'll work on getting this thing back in here. Okay, so I would like to do this the easy way, like everybody, but the problem we have here is that the old one right here is very rigid. It's very strong. The backbone of it's very strong, and I can actually slide it right back in as I pulled it out, but we got to get rid of that one, and we got to use the new one. Well, the new one is a wet noodle. So I put some soapy water on it down in the channel and on the part, and I could slide it in 6 or 8 inches maybe, but there's no way I'm going to slide it all the way down to the bottom. So that means we need to get the glass out of the way. It needs to come out of the channel and move back out of the way. So the way we're going to do that, I'm going to bring you around. I'll show you. All we have to do is take the back channel piece out, and then what we can do is just kind of get the glass off. It's going to stay on the rollers for the regulator to roll it up and down, so it's not going to go anywhere. We're just going to roll it all the way down, and we're going to get that channel out of the way, and then we can just kind of slide it over and lean it up against the skin, change the channel, slide it over, put it back, put it all back together, and we'll be done. So let me bring you around here and show you how to do that. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is take the lower stop off. We're just going to get that out of the way. Luckily I can fit my hands down inside here. We're just going to set that aside, and then we're going to take the guide plate off on the door jamb side of the door here, on the back side of it. And the glass won't fall. There's no risk. It's still on the rollers from the regulator. Everything's still in the channel. All this does is keep it true inside the channel there and adjust it forward and back. This plate is actually adjusted so the glass does not slide forward and back. You just kind of shoehorn it out of there, and you see this is kind of shiny because that goes down inside the channel with the glass. We'll set that aside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the glass up. Now, I don't think I need to take the upper stop off. I can do this just like it is. And I'll bring you around to the door jamb right here, and we'll get the bolts out that holds that in place, and then we should be able to lower the glass down, move it out of the way, and change that channel. Okay, there's 2 bolts on the side, and actually they should be chrome with a chrome washer and then a plastic nylon washer underneath it so it doesn't scratch the paint. And when they painted the car, they just didn't take anything off. They just painted over everything. So we're just going to bump those loose and try not to peel any paint. And we're going to take the bottom one all the way off. The bottom one has a adjustable kind of a oval plate here. The good thing about having them have this painted, as you can see right there, we're going to put this exactly back where it was, and it's going to be easy to tell exactly where it was. So we're going to set that aside, and then we're going to take this one, and when this one comes out, this whole channel is going to come out in my hand. There we go. So here's the channel, and that's what the other piece slides down inside of. Now this doesn't really wear out a lot, even in a 57-year-old car. It can wear out, don't get me wrong, but you know, it's down inside. It's not, it doesn't have the elements eating at it and everything else. So usually these don't get too bad. This one actually looks pretty good, so we're not going to mess with it. And now we can, I'll move you back over, and we're going to lower the glass down and get it out of the way. Okay, so now we're going to carefully lower the glass down. We're just going to keep our hand on it because now there's no channel. It'll actually slide forward and back really easily. So we want to keep it slid forward while it goes down. And we're going to go past the stop where the stop was. And what we need to do is just basically get this glass out of our way. So we're past the lower stop. And now I can actually just reach in there and slide that back. And now it's just leaning up against the back skin, or the exterior skin here a little bit. So I've got room. I can get my hand in there, and I can feel the channel all the way down. And so I can actually put that new channel inside there. So let's get to that. Okay, now we're ready to get the brand new channel in. And what you want to do is slide it down inside there. You just kind of turn it sideways, and then you're going to get it lined up with the top. So you got to start at the top because that's where the screw goes. You don't want to start at the bottom, work your way up, and have too much material or not enough. So we're going to have to kind of cram this down inside there. Sometimes the repops fit really good, sometimes they don't. This one is a little bit different design like I talked about, so I just got a little bit of it started right here. And now I got to kind of locate the hole, and we'll just put the screw on the end of the screwdriver. Kind of, there we go. We just have to fish it in there until it hits, and then just keep turning. And we got it nice and snug, so that's good. We're done right there. So then it's simple a matter of getting the new strip down inside this channel here. And we want to make sure it's bedded all the way in, so when the glass comes up and down, it's not pushing the glass backwards. It's just running inside the brand new felt. And it's going to be super tight at first. You know, it's just like putting new weather strips on and anything else. It's going to be tight for a while, then it'll wear itself in. And really, it's better to have it too tight than not tight enough. So all I'm going to do is just work this down inside the channel, and then I'll bring you back. So now I'm just going to roll the glass up carefully and make sure it doesn't hit. So I got my finger on it right here, and I can see it. It's close to the channel, and I'll bring it up. And we're going up the center. And what I'll do is I'll put my hand in the back over here, and I'll push it forward at the same time I'm cranking slowly. And the glass isn't in yet, but it's in the channel. It's in the right spot. So once we get it up a little higher, I'll be able to push on it a little bit and get this inside the channel. So I can see down inside here, it's wanting to go inside the channel. It feels pretty good. There we go. And then we just have to shove it forward into this channel. Kind of like that. And then I'm going to keep pressure with my hand right here, and then I'm going to crank up. Just like that. Okay, so now it's bedded, it's set right here. So all we have to do is put the other parts on that we took apart. So I can put the lower stop back in. Now we'll just put the guide back in right where it was. Remember, we've got those painted spots so that we know exactly where it was. Now we'll lower it down and get the channel in. And you just kind of shoehorn this back in here and then get the bolts in, and then we'll get it adjusted. Okay, now all we have to do is adjust tighten these two bolts once we get this plate adjusted properly. And to do that, I want to slide the glass towards the front of the door and then push that plate backwards and make sure there's some pressure on it so it's in that snug so it doesn't slide back and forth. And then we're going to tighten up the bolts, and that'll be about it. Yeah, we got a good snug on there, and that's it. We didn't mess with any of the other adjustments. Now this is going to be tight inside this groove, and it may not want to roll all the way up. It may take a little time. If it sits out in the sun a little bit, it'll probably get easier and easier to do. But that's it. So that's really how you change that channel out, and it's not that difficult. And now this thing is not going to whistle or squeak or rattle when you're driving down the road. Now while I've got this door panel off, I have some leftover insulation from the firewall, so let's go ahead and get that in now. It looks like they've sprayed something in here. I'm not quite sure what it is, but we're going to go ahead and add some more insulation anyways. Couldn't hurt. So I'm going to get a rag and wipe that down real good, make sure it's not dusty, so the self-adhesive insulation will stick really well and not peel away later and cause a problem for the window going up and down. Okay, I have this Styles insulation that's self-adhesive, the stuff I used on the firewall, and there's not a hole big enough to get it in. So I'm going to cut it into strip. I'm going to cut it in half so I can slide it through this opening right here and get it in place, then peel the backing and get it stuck. So what I'm going to want to do is just feed this in here, and I'm going to start the paper, just get it started so I don't have to try to start it when it's up inside there. Then I'm going to fold that back so I can get to it. I'm just going to kink over a corner to make sure my fingers can grab it. And then I'm just going to fish it down inside here. Okay, so now I got it in position. So now I'm just going to go reach in here and peel this paper back underneath it. And I'll pull back, 3 or 4 inches. And then what the idea is, if I can get my hand out of here, is to hold it in position, the height you want. About like that, I think. And then I'm going to stick that down on that end. And then what I'll do is I'll just pull that paper from underneath it. And I'll hold this other end up so I know it's going in where I want it, so it'll stay relatively flat. And then I'll just push it down with the other hand. And then I'll pull some more of the paper. And then I'll just keep doing that till I get all the way down to the end. And you don't want to pull too much off at once because this stuff is super sticky. Pull a few inches off at a time. Squish it down a little bit more. The danger is sticking you got it, and then you pull too much off and then it sticks to itself or something you don't want it to. Just like that. Okay, the next thing is to put the water shield back on here, the vapor barrier. And you guys can, I don't know if you could tell, but it's got some water damage down here. So it did its job. And this really wasn't put back on correctly. They had a lot of duct tape and there's a lot of hot glue on the back here. I guess whatever works, but it really wasn't installed properly. So what you want to do is it needs to go underneath this stainless trim piece that the door panel goes up under. So what you do is you just kind of slide it up under here. And if you got a new one, it's a lot easier. This one's pretty wrinkled up. But what we want to do, you can see there's a notch for every screw. So this actually makes it easier to put this on if you can get it up underneath here all the way and line it up. So you just slide it over, make sure your holes for your door handle line up and your window crank. And once you get it slid up in here, it acts kind of like a shield. So any water, it can't get past this point, and then it just runs down on the inside. And like I said earlier, it should be tucked underneath here. So I'm going to mess with this a little bit. And all we have to do is just get it lined up. And then we're going to tighten these screws back up. I backed these screws off so I could get it up underneath there. And we'll get all these tightened up. And then we'll get this thing glued down properly. Now, you really don't need to glue this down around the whole perimeter super tight. You just need to make sure it doesn't move. You're not going to hermetically seal the door panel from the inside of the door. There are some cars that have plastic with kind of a bituminous glue all around that basically seal it super tight. And that's good, but on these old cars, you don't have that. So now I have this wrinkled up portion that needs to go up underneath here and stay up underneath here. But the problem is, I think when I put the door panel on, that's not going to happen. It's not going to want to stay. But now we have it held up here so we can manipulate it all we want. So what I'm going to do is grab some contact cement and I'm going to put a few dabs here and there, and then we're going to let it dry, and then we're going to stick this back down. That way we can peel it away later if somebody needs to get in here or if we need to get in here, but it's going to hold it up against the inner door skin so it keeps the water inside of the door instead of running down on the inside of the door panel. So let me grab that real quick. We'll get some daubs on here and get this glued on properly. Okay, so I'm not worried about the sides as much as I am the bottom here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to fold this up, and I can see where it's going to touch along the edge here. And I've just got, this is plain old contact cement. And we're just going to kind of glob it on here. Try not to make too much of a mess. And then I can see where it touches if I rub it on the wet stuff. And we're just going to kind of run just a little light bead on there. Just like that. And we'll do that on the other side here. So this is the part I want to stick down really good. So we've got this little rib right along here. And so I'm going to put a dab here and there because I don't want to seal it tight because I want the water to be able to run through there, right? So I'm just going to put a dab here or there. And then I'll touch this down. And I can see where it touched on here because it's wet. And then we'll just put it right back down. And it may not be perfect. I mean, this paper is a little kind of wrinkled up and worn out. So we're looking pretty good right there. I got strings all over the place. So I'm going to let this dry a little bit, and then we're just going to stick it down, and we'll get the door panel back on. Okay, so the glue should be set up enough now. And what we're going to do is just kind of push it down. Kind of stretch it over the top here. Then we're going to try to tuck this paper into that groove so it's up underneath there. Just like that. That ain't going to be perfect. This piece of paper is far from smooth and flat. Contact cement string there. But as you can see, no tape, no mess. And that paper's on there pretty good. Now let's grab the door panel and stick that thing back on here. Okay, so I got the door panel ready. The clips are in the right spots. I actually took some contact cement, fixed some of these spots. It was kind of pulling away. So you want to slide this up underneath here and make sure it all goes under. Make sure the vinyl goes under. Otherwise, it kind of mushrooms like that, like happened when whoever put this on last. So getting that up inside there can be tricky because this piece of trim is pretty tight. So you just kind of get the tool up in here. I got a plastic little tool right here. I'm just going to bump that in there and just kind of work your way down. Okay, got it all up in there really nice. I've got it all down at the other end so it can't drop. So now all I have to do is line up the holes for the two pins on this side. Let's give them a smack and we'll get this other side in right here. Just can't assume those things are lined up. And then it's just a matter of putting the screws back in. Okay, so the window rolls up and down nicely. It's a little tight on the way up. Well, it's a little tight on the way down too. This channel is pretty tight, which is what we were trying to fix. So it's going to take a little bit of effort to crank it up and down, but it's already getting easier. And it's not wanting to top out all the way because of this little piece right here. It's a little tight, but you don't really want to try to get in there and bend that around or anything. You just let heat and time take care of it for you. It's sitting outside. I can get it to roll all the way up. I just have to fiddle with it a little bit. You just let it park it out in the sun a little bit, and it'll work its way out. If it doesn't later, then you can kind of mess with it a little bit. But so what we're going to do is we're just going to push the door shut slowly. Excuse me. I'll hold my thumb on the latch, and I can push it up against there, and see that it's clearing the chrome trim right here, not banging into it. So it's sealing up there really nice and clean, and it's sealed up all here really nice. So it's going to be whistle free next time this thing's on the road, and hopefully that'll be fairly soon. We're getting there little by little, but I really like the way that everything's fitting on here. It's going to be not like a new car inside, but it'll certainly be a lot tighter than it was and a lot quieter inside. Okay guys, that pretty much wraps up the work for today. We got the window channel changed out. Not a super difficult job, but if you don't know how to attack it, it can be a little daunting, and you may take more stuff apart than you really need to. As you saw, we just got the glass out of the way. We didn't take it out, and we didn't take it off the arms off the regulator. We just kind of moved it out of the way, got the channel changed out, and put everything back fairly quickly. And in the meantime, we're able to fix some of the other issues down inside here. Got everything lubed, got some more insulation on there, and got the door panel on fitting a little bit nicer. So all in all, it worked out really well. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and mash that bell icon so you get notifications every time I release a new video. We'll see you on the next one.